Welcome to Now for Someone Completely Interesting. I'm your host, Ben Pooland. Since I began this podcast, I've had friends, acquaintances, former coworkers, and people I've met for the first time join me. Now, this episode features yet another milestone. It is the first family member. That's right, for the first time here on the show, I've got a relative. Now, I have many relatives who are undoubtedly completely interesting. I do come from a big family, so it was kind of a difficult for me to decide who would be the first. And as it turns out, it's the one who invites you over first. But seriously, I asked my cousin Christine Berget to join me for many reasons, one of which is her caring, generous nature that has led to a project called Pastures of Promise, and we will get to that later on. But first, I want to thank you for accepting my invitation to join me on the show and then inviting me over to this place that's very familiar to me. It's the family farm that you grew up in. So I'm actually going to start with that. We're somewheres between Radway and Redwater.
Yeah,
It's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, pretty much.
But this is the farm you grew up on, and now it's your farm. But let's start there. What was it like growing up on this farm? Because it had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, back in the day, this farm had cows and ducks and chickens, and we had everything that you could imagine for animals out here. We had sheep, we had a llama at one time. I can't even remember all of the different things. Lots of cats, lots of dogs, all kinds of critters.
Yeah,
Everything was out
I,
here.
re- I remember mostly the horses.
Oh yes,
Well, it was your sister's horse. I remember the most.
Scout.
Scout. Everybody remembers
Yeah,
that
the big
horse.
white polka dotted horse.
But he was a nice horse.
He was, yeah,
Easy to
he
ride
was
and everything like
dumb, but yes.
that.
He was a big dumb horse. Yeah, everybody loved the big dumb horse.
Why not, right? Another thing growing up, your brother Brian is one of the funnest people I've ever come across in my life.
Crazy,
Yeah,
silly.
crazy to say the least. He always had a fine collection of old cars
Yep,
that were still in running condition,
yep.
but not roadworthy. So what else are you going to do with those things?
Right, exactly. So then he would rip the car hood off and then we'd stick it with a rope on it and take the truck out to the back 40 and we'd drive as fast as we can while kids would hang off the back and hope to God they didn't die. But it was great. It was fun.
But before the hood got ripped off, there was demo derbies too.
Oh,
With
100%. Yeah, and mud bogging. So we had to see. We always had every year like a runoff on the creek, and
right,
so we'd have to see how fast you could go before you get stuck, and then we bring out the tractor
right.
to pull you right out.
So your family, let's kind of explain a little bit the dynamic of it has some twists and turns. Not really twists and turns, but it changed. You grew up, you're third of four kids,
Right, the middle
right?
child.
The sort of middle child, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you've got who's the oldest?
Brian.
Brian's the oldest, so your brother's the oldest, then your sister Tammy,
Yeah.
and then it's you, and then it's your younger sister Connie.
Yes.
So you guys grow up, you have this experience growing up on the farm, and sometime after you guys all left, your parents decided that they weren't done helping to raise kids, so they got into foster care.
Well, we hadn't all left yet,
Okay, so
actually. Yeah, so they started into foster care when I was about 15,
okay,
16.
okay,
And so being of that age, then mom and dad, it was just for one, it was another way to have an income, but it was also another way to extend our family.
hmm,
And mom and dad were very caring people who wanted to help out a lot, right?
right.
So they opened their home up to
Hmm.
fostering.
What went through your mind when that happened?
I hated
Okay,
I absolutely hated it. I wanted nobody extra in my house. I already had to split up my parents between other siblings and now even more. And then I had to share a room. Like I remember when I was growing up, there was my two sisters and me in one room, and it's a tiny room. And then
hmm,
my brother got the big room by himself.
right.
So then over time, Tammy finally got the closet because that was the next room that we could. So then Connie and I would share a room, and then that was great. But then we had to expand the house a little bit, and then we got more space. Well, now we're filling it back up with kids. So now we're getting less space and less. less time with mom and dad and all these kids. And Connie was excited. She was like, yay, I get new siblings and people to play with. And I was like, oh, I get more people to fight with. Like, I always felt like there was always this dynamic where, they would come in and take everything away.
Was I a little off when I said you were a caring, giving person?
I know, but I changed over the years. I mean, that was when I was like
Hmm.
15, 16, like prime time when you want your parents around for you.
Was there
Well, at least
something?
for me.
Was there a moment where you saw one of these kids come in and you truly saw the benefit of them coming into this home that kind of sticks out? Is there
Yeah,
a
when I
moment or?
left. When I moved out and I got married, and a few of the kids that came through like really stick out. Tracy was one of those. She moved in with me and
Hmm.
became a roommate in Redwater, and she's still part of our family.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, we had Terry and Kristen and Matt, and they moved in. They fit our family so well, and they've always been part of our family. And ever since they moved in, I felt like I fit in
Right.
into my family. I know it sounds so weird, but
Hmm.
they're more like me, and I'm more like them than I was about Brian and Tammy and Connie.
Right.
So it was nice. It was like I finally had a full family again.
Right.
Like I missed that part. So even though I was upset about having all these other kids, I found my family
Hmm.
through them. So,
Um, how many kids do you think over the years your parents took in?
over 100.
Well over 100.
Yeah.
So, and I know, like you said, there's some lifelong friendships that have developed.
Yeah.
There's lifelong siblings that developed. We'll touch on that a bit. You've already mentioned some names, but um, there wasn't always the best scenarios coming out of this. There was a time while your mom had a brand new car that got written off.
Yeah. And we're still, by the way, we still have contact with that foster boy.
Oh,
He's still friends actually, and we still do care about him and that.
right.
But he had decided he wanted to take mom's car for a little joyride and take his friend that came over. And so he took the keys and her new car, and within, I don't know, a mile down the road, rolled the car and totaled it.
But that's something that any one of you could have done.
True, and because he lived here, then it was like, well, he didn't steal the car,
Right.
therefore he lived here. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a hardship because first time mom ever got a new car and worked
Hmm.
really hard to get one, and then now it's just taken all away
Hmm.
and not covered in insurance
Right.
because this was a family member in our home.
Right.
So there's, it was tension felt for sure in
Right.
that.
Another tough scenario. I remember talking to your dad about it once, years and years ago. I mean, they were still involved in foster care, but I had noticed there a lot of the kids that came in were older kids, usually into their teenage years. It didn't start out that way. Why did they gravitate? I don't know if you can talk about that or not, but I know what your dad had told me, but if you can enlighten us a little bit.
Actually, it started off with teenagers.
Okay.
Surprisingly, we had teenagers through that. Dad got along better with teens,
Right.
and since Dad was the primary stay-at-home dad to deal with them, it was easier on him. And he was primarily it was boys that he dealt with because he felt like the harder, like he was a little bit tougher, but
Hmm.
these boys really needed that.
Right.
They needed that guidance. They learned how to do lots on the farm. Like they were learning how to do shingles and they were learning how to do like guy stuff. And
Hmm.
Dad was really good with that. And then gradually it started getting younger. And that's when it was getting harder on
Hmm.
mom and dad. And so we came to the decision with them that maybe this isn't the best idea to have the younger kids, and mom and dad agreed that it was kind of coming interrupting family time, with everybody else, and also it was getting hard on mom and dad because it was not their niche. Like dad
Right.
wasn't getting along with the younger ones because they didn't listen as well,
Mm-hmm.
and the rules changed in fostering with what was allowed for. So if you got in trouble with something, it wasn't just the general, like go to your room or whatever, or go run down the driveway and wear off that steam. What you could
Right.
do with a teenager now, that's abusive, and you
Right.
can't do that, and it just got
Mm-hmm.
difficult. So it was just better just to get out of it at that point.
I remember your dad telling me once there was an episode where there was a younger child that they had, very young. I want to say preschool almost. But your family had become quite attached with this one kid, but
Mm-hmm.
then the court system decided, well, they're going to go back to their family. But I remember your dad relating to me and your sister Tammy as well that the kid was going back to a situation they knew was not healthy,
Yeah.
and that had an emotional drain on that. Do you recall that?
Oh yeah. The thing is that when you see a situation and you know that it's only going to be a hardship on them, and you've now grown a love and like you've taken them into your home and almost like adopted them in a sense without adopting
Mm-hmm.
as being part of your family, and then now they're just being ripped and put into a really unhealthy situation, but there's nothing you can do
Right.
about that. Just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Like and of course, like in the system and being so young, it's not like you can reach out to them. You have to wait and see if they'll ever reach
Yeah.
out to you. So you don't have that. Even are they okay?
Yeah.
Did they make it? You know.
And I think that's where your dad said too, dealing with the teenagers, if one of those kids were going back into a situation, he always said, well,
They're
they were
stronger.
tougher kids, right? So
Yeah.
he said, I always felt they could to some degree stand up for themselves, and
Yeah.
he didn't worry about them as much, and maybe they instilled a little bit more confidence in them as well too.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
yeah, that always stuck out with me, that conversation. I was like, well, that's kind of set me that I'm pretty sure I would never get into foster care simply for that
Yeah.
reason, right? But
Yeah.
um,
I wouldn't want to take in babies. That's what I would think. I think if I started having like having babies come and and you're taking care of them, you grow an attachment
yeah,
super quick, and
yeah,
then they're going to be put back into homes where you know that it's not the best situation,
right.
and you had a better home, but it's not. You
Hmm.
can't adopt them. That would break my heart.
Yeah.
There's no way.
So eventually, your parents, so they retired from the foster care after what was it, like 20 years?
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
So they're still out on the farm here. They've
Hmm.
raised you on the farm. They've raised over 100 other foster kids here on the farm. Um, yeah, you said you moved out, had roommates, you got married, you
Hmm.
started a family of your own. You were living in Redwater, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
But as your parents got older, it's a lot of work raising kids. The farm started slowly losing some of uh, the vibration, the life of the
Hmm.
farm itself that we knew growing up.
Right, it
But
became a money pit.
right,
Let's just say
okay,
what it
all
is.
right.
It became a
Try,
money pit.
trying to be nice. The buildings were falling into disrepair. The animals were gone, and
Yeah,
your parents didn't have the youth that they had
right.
to be
To
able to
keep
put
it
that
up.
work in. So the opportunity came up for you and your husband at the time to take over the
Yeah, we
farm.
were young and we were ambitious and we wanted more space, and we thought, what a great opportunity. Just we were looking at acreages and that, and we
Hmm.
weren't finding anything that was, within a good price range. And then I said, well, maybe we should see if mom and dad will swap houses.
Right.
And so we checked into it to see value wise if it would work out, and the banks agreed that it was okay. And mom and dad thought, you know what, it'd be easier. Dad liked to ride his bike, and so
Hmm.
this way he could leave, instead of driving gravel road with his bike or parking it at my place in Redwater as he was already. Then he could just drive out the back and go. He was a baker, so he was driving at that time to Fort Saskatchewan
Right.
to do baking, and this way he could ride his bike to work and
Hmm.
stuff. So we
You mean a
did
motorbike, though?
a motorbike,
I don't
yeah,
think I ever
not a
seen your
pedal
dad on a
bike.
pedal bike.
No, no, Mike, no, not at all. But yeah, just motorbike.
Right.
So yeah, we did a house swap. So we moved out to the farm, and mom and dad moved into Redwater with our house.
How did that feel coming back to where you grew up, but now you're the one in charge of this house. You're not living under someone else's roof. This is your roof now. Is that a little bit surreal that you're in the same place?
Well, I think it was more surreal for mom and dad to have us out here, and
Right.
then first thing I do, because that's what I do, is I like renovations. So I was tearing it apart and redoing things, and that I think is hard to watch when
Mhm.
you know that that was your family home for
Right.
how many years. And so we've been on the farm. The family farm has been now in the family for 44 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
And
tough.
it wasn't to something your parents just started. This was an old farm to begin with when
Yeah,
they got into it. That was back in would be the 70s,
in the
right? So
70s.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the house is here. It's about 100 years old that we're sitting in.
Yeah, it was built in 1919,
Wow.
and it's still standing. It's
Yeah.
crooked, but it's standing. Everything in this house is crooked,
There's a
but
lean here and there's a lean there, but it's standing, it's
if you
sturdy.
watch the floor, the water will roll. So, but it's
Well,
it's lived in, it's been loved in, and it's still got value in the sense of like it feels home. It
right.
feels like home.
But you guys put a lot into it, and you've brought this farm back to life. Like we did the walk around. We've talked here. Yeah, the house has had some renovations. It's got your personal stamp, but some of the renovations were absolutely necessary,
Uh,
which is why the house is still standing. Let's face it. But outside, like a lot of those old beater cars aren't sitting out in the back 40 anymore.
no,
A
that
lot of
took a
those,
lot of cleanup.
yeah, a lot of
Thanks,
those.
Brian.
A lot of a lot of those old decrepit shacks have been removed or at least fixed up a little bit, and the animal life has come back. Like we did a tour. Like I can't believe what's out here. Let's start. We got goats.
Oh yeah, we got 38 goats.
Okay. We've got a couple of donkeys now that are
Yep,
new to the mix. We've got I saw some potbelly pigs,
yep,
ducks,
yep.
chickens,
Lots of
lots
chickens,
of chickens.
different kinds.
Some that
They're crazy.
and some that tap into our heritage.
Yeah, Polish hens. Gotta have some Polish hens in there.
Absolutely, which is great. And then even your younger daughter too has her own rabbit operation.
Yep. So
So
little dandy rabbitry, and it's English lops.
yeah, and all
Yeah.
those cute rabbits, and we're not allowed to touch them.
Nope, don't touch
So
them.
just for
You can
any
go on
yeah,
our website and look them up, but don't touch them
don't.
unless you buy them.
You're saying something, $300 a pop?
Yeah, they
Wow,
between I think it's between $200 and $300 for them.
fantastic.
And she's really worked
A
hard to get that.
good little entrepreneurial business and niche.
Yeah,
So, but it leads me to something else here, and that I alluded to at the beginning. So you've got this great parcel of land here that you're on. This basically it's kind of like a hobby farm. I mean, you work a full-time job and then you come back and you're dealing with the goats and everything like that. But something developed over the years that came to fruition here last year. Now it hasn't panned out the way you wanted, but I want to talk about it anyways because the idea behind it is fantastic. And it's something I think people need to know about if they can help out or if they can take the initiative themselves to do something like that. And you call it pastures of promise. So
yeah.
talk a little bit about how this came about for you here and what it exactly is.
So the name Pastures of Promise came about as an idea that Um, so back in the day when mom and dad owned the property, they actually had a rainbow. They named it Rainbow's End was the farm name. We started looking into seeing if that's something that my sister Tammy and I, if that was something that we could name this thing that we were gonna do, and I'll explain it a little bit. But Rainbow's End was already taken, and so then we started thinking about like the ideas of it. And what we feel is, or what I feel is that God has really been part of my life through my whole growing up years, and well through even now. But I feel like God has given us so much, and it's really important for us to give back, be a good steward to what He has given us. And so part of that was to in this regard, we felt like there when my sister Tammy had this vision of giving back fresh produce and creating a garden that we could give to the needy, whether it be food bank or wherever it would go.
Hmm.
And and so a few years ago, we had thought about doing that, and we were on the mission of doing it. We went and took a course to see how to have like fresh, good gardens and set up a program or do something like that. But then things kind of like went to the wayside for me. I ended up separating from my husband
Hmm.
and leaving the farm. So that whole idea just kind of skipped away for a short time. I ended up coming back to the farm over the course of, say, 3 years ago. And during COVID last year, I felt this really heavy draw to really draw closer to God and listen to what He had to say. And in the beginning, He had said, like, this is what I would like you to do with this garden, and then all of a sudden, my daughter's boyfriend had been in IGA, and one of his coworkers said, "Hey, I have a box full of seeds. Ask if your family or your daughter's, or sorry, your girlfriend's family wants the seeds." And I said, he came and said, "Do you want these seeds?" And I thought, oh, I'm thinking like a small little
Hmm.
box. And so I said, "Sure, of course I'll take them. Yeah, I haven't had a garden. Maybe I'll do one." And when he came in with this giant, I'm talking like, I would say like an apples box, like an apple
Right.
box full of seeds, and it was all garden seeds and sun and flowers. And I just thought to myself, right then and there, like it just brought back all the memories of like how many years ago that my sister Tammy and I were thinking about like creating a garden to give back. And it just, my heart and my head went into, okay, I get it. This is what I need to do. All right, here we go. And so then we started just looking for like material and stuff to
Hmm.
be able to create this garden. And so I decided raised beds were going to work. So I called up my neighbors. They had this like mill, and they had all this extra lumber and stuff. So I said, "Hey, do you mind if I take this scraps that you got?" And they said, "No, go ahead." So I loaded up a truckload or two and brought them back and built these boxes. And then I bought some soil and created these raised beds for gardens. And then I named it Pastures of Promise, because I feel like God's promises, like in the rainbow, He promised never to flood the earth again. And so I
Hmm.
felt like this was God's promise to us. If we give back and be good stewards, He's going to give back to us in full return with whatever. And so I felt like if I could do that, then I could, um, give. If I can give, then He'll give
Hmm.
back to me as well. And so that's where it all stemmed. And I created a garden within that year, and then donated it all. Everything I grew, I donated it all to the local food bank.
Excellent. Now we had a look at it. Um, it seems like a big undertaking, but really, like when you break it down, the simplicity of it, like it was a minimal cost to set up. Um, it hasn't quite panned out, and I don't know if it's because of the way things progressed with restrictions during COVID or whatever like that. But this now going into your second year, there hasn't been the donations with the seeds or anything like that. You did invest not only your time but money. You had said something like about $260 to get the soil
Yeah,
that you needed for it, which isn't a big expense by any means. Like we said, $260. That's a week's worth of groceries for a small
right.
family nowadays. But look at how this could help out. Um, but I think the idea there to keep pushing with it and trying to get that
Mm-hmm.
going, I'm really impressed with it. It's a simple idea that I think can will do a lot in the long run. And what did we calculate? There's less than 200 square feet of garden
Yeah,
space.
so about 160
Yeah,
square feet that we created.
yeah,
So 160 square feet of garden, and what did we figure in just two packs so a pack of seeds is about $2.50 for a
yeah,
pack of seeds.
yeah.
And in just two packs of seeds, you should get about a yield of almost, what did we
We're
say?
estimating 60 pounds of
60
carrots.
pounds of carrots out of $5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you
So how
can
easy is that to help with
exactly.
with the world? So this is when people are talking about change the world and do all these things, and we have these big grand ideas, but really it's just the simplest thing, and that's what I really wanted to illustrate is how impactful this actually is. Because let's say, well, maybe we don't get the donations for you or the help to get this off the ground the way you had originally envisioned it, but maybe someone's listening to this saying, well, I can do that
Right,
and help out.
exactly.
And there's lots of, whether it be the food bank, there's soup kitchens, there's all kinds of ways that this can go to help. So thank you so much for bringing that up and explaining that to us. And like I said, let's simplify it. We're talking about 160 square feet of garden space
Right.
that could probably be feed an entire family for a full winter season
Oh,
with the
definitely.
yield, like the potatoes, the all of that stuff, like that can be processed. So um, Pastures of Promise, you guys have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
So we're going to post a link to that as well with this so that people can find out a little bit more, maybe actually get a visual of what it is, because you do have pictures posted, the
Yes, I do.
process of building it all like that. And there is a way that people can contact you through the Facebook page to
Hmm.
if they want to help out or have some suggestions like as to where some of that food can help out as well. So um, that was a big part of why I want to bring you on and why I said caring, generous. You're always thinking
Hmm.
of other people, and you've always been like that.
Yeah, even though I say that about the foster kids, I still really like them. But you know, when you're a teenager with a teenager,
Yes, and you know what I
that's the
forgot
way it
to,
is.
but one of the best things that happened through the foster care system, you mentioned
Hmm.
a family there that you had and that your parents ended up adopting. So they are
Yes,
really, truly your family there.
they
And that's,
truly are.
yeah, so shout out to Kristen and Terry there that were adopted by you guys. And I literally, like, it's been so long now, I don't remember you guys not having them in your family.
Exactly.
So it's, and I mean,
They've always been
I
there.
was in my late teens when they were adopted. We're virtually the same age, but like yeah, so it's what happened with that was yeah another. It's like it was meant to be the foster parents just so you could find those two to complete the family.
Exactly.
And like you said, I think you're right. You're more like them than they are than you're like you.
It's true. No, no offense to the rest of them.
No, we love them just as
We
much,
do.
just in different ways. This is my cousin Christine Berget. Thank you so much for joining me, my first relative to come on. Someone
Thanks for
completely
having me.
interesting. No, I'm proud to call you a family member because of just yeah everything you do, and so um, thank you so much for that. So yeah, check us out, Pastors of Promise, and something different we're going to do now with the podcast. A suggestion that was made to us by my friend Corey is I would be interested to know when you bring on someone completely interesting, who do they think would be completely interesting on the podcast? And I'm not saying we'd be able to bring someone on, but who would you think would be a good fit for this show here? Do you have an idea?
Well, I definitely have two
Okay,
ideas.
let's hear them and maybe we can
Okay.
get them on.
So, and actually, it's a couple that's an amazing couple, but they both have completely different things that are amazing about them. And one is Song, her name is Song,
Okay,
and some of the discoveries that she's made through her photographs.
okay,
And then the other one is Paul, and he is part of the military and the ceremonial Strathcona Mount Troop. So he's
awesome.
the sergeant. So I think that both of them are just amazing people.
Interesting teaser enough. So let's find out more. You can get in touch with them, explain the situation here, and if we can have them on the podcast, I would appreciate that, and I'm sure our listeners would greatly appreciate that. Christine Berget, someone completely interesting. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the podcast, please don't forget to share and like with your friends. You can find us on all your favorite podcast providers and through social media by searching Poolin Radio, all one word, or Now for Someone Completely Interesting.